Hi, I'm Dr. G. I'm Deborah Gilboa. I'm a family physician and a resilience expert, and I was just on the Leadership Café with Michael Couch and Richard Citron. And I hope you'll come listen in because we talked about three really useful bits of information for leaders. One, why leaders don't need to feel betrayed and the mistake that they make when they announce change to their employees. Two, why it is that our brains react the way they do to even the possibility of change. And three, what to do when you get frustrated to actually move your organization forward. I hope you'll join us.
Well, welcome to thank you for joining us for another edition of the Leadership Cafe. We're calling this Leadership Cafe 2.0. So it's our second or third year working together with leaders from all over the world. On the Leadership Cafe, we talk with extraordinary people who are leading remarkable businesses and careers. And we're your hosts. I'm Michael Couch.
And I'm Richard Citron. It's great to be with you again this new season, as Michael said. And we are so excited today to have Dr. Deborah Gilboa joining us. Dr. G, as she is known, is a board-certified family physician practicing here in Pittsburgh. She is a frequent guest on TV shows like The Today Show, Good Morning America, and is the resilience expert for the TV show The Doctors. Now, Debbie and I share a passion around resilience and is the author of the just recently released book, From Stress to Resilience. It's a wonderful book. I highly recommend it. It's filled with so many exercises and action steps you can take to strengthen your resilience. And of course, Dr. Gilboa talks brilliantly about resilience, and there's a couple of secrets in there. Maybe she'll share a few of them here, but you may have to just get the book to find out what those are about. Another amazing side note about Dr. G is that she's an alumna of Chicago's Second City Improv Theater. So this has got to be an amazing story as well. So Dr. G, it's great to have you joining us. Thank you so much to kick off our first episode of our next season of the Leadership Cafe. How are you today?
I'm great. I'm honored to be here.
Well, tell us a little bit about your leadership background, your career background. How did you make this leap from theater to medicine? And there's got to be an amazing story about that.
Well, I've been bossy since I was 3. The truth is that I thought about being a doctor, and I'm a medical doctor, and I had thought about being a doctor when I was little, 4, 5, 6 years old, all the way through early high school when we had to dissect something in freshman biology. And it was disgusting. And I was it really turned my stomach. And what I didn't know at the time is that during puberty, most people are more sensitive to those kinds of reactions. So I thought, I guess I can't be a doctor. I mean, really, that one day with a fetal pig in biolab, and I thought, well, I can't be a doctor, but, I've been doing theater at my high school and it's really fun. And the boys are cute and the hours are long and you get to use power tools and stand on stage and talk in front of lots of people. What could be better? I spent the next 4 years doing a sort of college prep thing at my public high school, but I found out you could major in theater, which sounded like play to me. And so I applied to a bunch of universities. I was lucky enough to get accepted to what at the time was called a conservatory program in drama, meaning we took pretty much nothing in the entire university outside the drama department. So I spent 4 years at what my dad called the most expensive trade school in the universe and got my Bachelor of Fine Arts in drama from Carnegie Mellon University. And I worked. I was lucky and also really well supported in that program. So I went out and I got work right away. Theater is a very episodic kind of work. You don't work your way up in one organization normally. You work from organization to organization. You spend your lunch breaks and your days off hunting for jobs 2 jobs ahead. So it's this constant leapfrog kind of work. A little less so in television, but even so, I got my union card in the Actors Equity Association on a show called, and I'm not joking, Gilligan's Island the Musical. In which, for audience members who might remember the TV show at all, I played, among other things, Mud Gilligan. Gilligan falls into the mud pit. I climbed out in the mud suit. In any case, I really liked it. I liked the constant change. I did work my way up in not in any one organization, but in terms of responsibility, I was performing some, but I was also stage managing and doing lighting design. I loved being a stage manager. I got this amazing job at Second City Improv Theater and really was, at least 10 years younger than the next youngest person in my company. Now there, you can stay in one organization for years. As a matter of fact, the person I replaced had been there 27 years. And after kind of the shine was off a little bit and I felt like I was a part of it and I had figured out how things work a bit, I realized I could do this for 5 years, but not 25. And I had, while I was in undergrad, volunteered as an emergency medical technician. And I really liked it. I liked driving the ambulance. I liked going into people's houses. I liked doing procedures. I liked being there in the 40 minutes where somebody really needed help.
You could use the side.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Also, I can now park any car because I can park an ambulance. And when I was realizing that I was going to be looking for my next thing when I was at Second City, even though a lot of people stayed there for a long time, I realized that I wasn't sure theater was that thing. I had in some ways peaked at, 24 years old in that field, and I could move to Broadway, I could do other things, but I got really intrigued by this idea of maybe doing something in the field of medicine, of doing something that felt really urgent and really directly helpful. I really believe in how incredibly important the arts are, but I wanted something that felt more adrenaline filled and more immediate. If you've ever been backstage in theater, there's a lot of adrenaline there. So I was going to have to really up my game if I wanted to top it. And I called Northwestern's medical school. I was in Chicago, and this is pre-internet. So I called Northwestern's med school one day and said, hey, I'm thinking about applying to medical school. What's required? And she said, a bachelor's. I asked, in what? Assuming she would say biology or at least science. And she said, college. I was like, I have one of those. I totally have. I did have to take about a year's worth of science classes to fill in the gaps. I had to take the MCATs. It's a full year of interviewing and all of that. And I was on my own. I had money I'd saved because I'd been working successfully, but not necessarily enough to support all that. But one of the jobs I had in theater was at a theater company called Deaf West Theater Company. And I had learned a little bit of ASL, of American Sign Language, while I was there. And I got really interested in the journey of deaf people in the world of healthcare, because that's what the show we were doing was about. We did One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And so especially mental health and all that. So while I was taking those science bachelor classes, doing what's called a post-bac, I also took ASL. I got trained as an interpreter, and I worked my way through my interview year and all of med school as an interpreter. And the reason that matters in my leadership journey is it put me in this unusual position when I finished medical school of having an area of expertise that doctors wanted to know more about, even though I was a baby doctor, right? Very, very beginning of what I was doing. So I'm an intern, but I'm also going out and speaking at conferences about better healthcare for deaf and hard of hearing individuals. And I'm seeing deaf patients in my residency practice. And I'm realizing that not only do I really like that continuing education, being a part of leading people to think differently about something that they really thought they already understood. Also, doctors, for the most part, are dreadful public speakers. So as soon as my voice got onto the internet, I would get calls from radio programs and television news saying, hey, could you comment on this thing? I think simply because I had an MD after my name and I could speak English engagingly. And that was really good information, but I was on a path. I finished my residency. I came back to Pittsburgh. I started working in a rural community about 40 minutes north of here for about 3 years, which is great experience because in a rural community, there are very few people to refer patients to. So I did a lot of specialty care in addition to primary care. And then a wonderful thing happened for me. A federally qualified health center was being opened about 2 miles from my home. And as a family doc, we are all about serving and living in the same community when we can. I was interviewed and hired to be the first doctor at this health center, serving people primarily who were linguistically and religiously and culturally underserved. When we counted a couple of years ago, our patients spoke over 100 languages, came from 62 different countries. So really, in what people think of as a homogenous small city, We have a lot of diversity. And it gave me the opportunity to learn how people solve problems and promote their health in hundreds of cultures. And I learn from and with my patients every day. But the reason that resilience is my passion is because when I'd been a doc for about 5 years and I was starting to think, okay, I don't totally know what I'm doing, but I kind of know what I'm doing. I started to notice this gap between when people get better from something, recover from something, and actually feel well, truly well and confident and able to pursue whatever it is they want to pursue. And I knew I'd been trained how to help people get better, but not how to help people be well. And when I looked in the medical literature, that gap is often defined as patient resilience, which, to be honest, I thought was a cop-out. The medical field says, like, well, we got you this far, the rest is on you. But then I thought, what if it's true? What if that actually is what's in the gap? And I wanted to know what resilience is. Like, okay, if what my patients now need is resilience, how do I prescribe that? What is it? What's it made of? What are the building blocks? And it became clear to me as I talked to people in the office that a lot of what they were asking me about wasn't, hey, am I on the right inhaler for my medicine? Or does my kid really need more sleep to help with their ADD? They believed they were on the right inhaler and they agreed that their kid needed more sleep. What they didn't know how to do was to make those things happen in the context of the stressful lives they were living. How can I navigate all this is what people were really asking me over and over and over again. And so I wanted to become more knowledgeable about the skills that strengthen us when we're stressed, when we're overwhelmed, when we have many things that either we're trying to achieve or that we have to navigate, or most usually a combination. I wanted to know what does help so that I could offer those to people as strategies.
Amazing. I mean, this is what we hear all the time on the cafe when we talk with remarkable leaders. Careers are never just a single trajectory. And that variety of experience and key changes and insights throughout a career make a big difference. I'm very intrigued. You also talk about resilience from an organization standpoint too. So what organizations and leaders can do to hire, train, and rewire employees for resilience. What would your guidance be to leaders today, given the amount of challenges organizations are facing in this area?
Awesome. So I'm going to let you. This is like you remember when you had to show your work in math class? And it was easier if you knew the answer to just write the answer and move on, and you couldn't figure out why they wanted you to show your work. So in my book and in my TED Talk and stuff, I show my work. But this gives me an opportunity, Michael, to just give people the answer that I learned. The brain chemistry shows this, that it isn't only difficulty or adversity that stresses us. It is all change that stresses us for a really basic reason. Our brains have a million functions, but one job, and that job is to keep us alive. Good news, we are currently alive. Bad news, our brains are suspicious of all possible change because we fundamentally know that some change will kill us. In the end, it's always a change that kills us, right? So our brains consider all possible change suspect. Leaders are usually the decision makers, but always the messengers of change.
The creators of change. Maybe, yeah.
Often the creators, but always the messenger. So COVID is a great example of how often leaders were not the creators of that change, but they were the messengers of this is how our organization is going to react. This is the thing that's coming down the pike, right? So often the creators, always the messengers of change. And yet where I think that leaders understandably get it wrong is they believe if I have proven that I am trustworthy and dependable and capable, my people won't be afraid of my changes because they trust me, because they know me, because they have faith in me, because I support them, because I'm a good enough leader. My people will be change ready, even change welcoming if it comes from me. And they can't be. An analogy that I find really powerful. Have you ever taken a kid to the doctor's office for a physical? Okay, so I sit your kiddo up on my exam table and I take my reflex hammer and I tap their knee and their foot kicks out, right? If I stand right in front of them when I tap their knee, what's going to happen to me?
Get kicked.
I get kicked. Should you chastise your child for disrespectfully kicking the doctor?
No.
No. I'm the idiot who tapped their reflex and stood right in front of them. Well, our brain has not just one deep tendon reflex, but 3 reflex reactions to hearing about the possibility of change: loss, distrust, and discomfort. Knowing that, stop standing right in front of your people when you announce change, because you're going to get kicked. And you're not going to get kicked because you're not a good leader. And you're not going to get kicked because they don't trust you or you haven't proven yourself capable or mission focused. They can't help it. It's a reflex. So announce the change while you're standing to the side. If you think of it, you'll recognize that doctors check reflexes while standing to the side of our patients, so we can move forward and not get kicked. And I think that the biggest thing that I have learned, the one thing I could gift to leaders, it would to stop feeling betrayed when your people struggle with change. Their brains are just trying to keep them alive.
Mm-hmm. And nobody really handles change easily because, as you said, the brain, that's seen as a threat by the brain. It's out of the routine of what the brain is used to.
Now, leaders who are listening are thinking, I have some people who are great at change.
Yes. Yeah.
And in my work, I use the definition of resilience as the ability to navigate change and come through it mission focused, whether that's personal mission or organizational mission. Okay, so you're thinking to yourself, listen, some of my people are incredibly resilient. I'm so lucky, or I'm such a good interviewer, or I've cultivated this in them, or they're such forward thinking people that they've cultivated in themselves. But here's the important thing about resilience. Michael and Richard, your work and my work is based on this idea that resilience isn't a trait. It's not eye color. You can grow it, right? But that means you can lose it as well. Growth commodities have peaks and troughs, and you can absolutely have somebody that you can count on to handle change who shocks you one day because they cannot pick up this particular bucket, whatever it is. I had an interesting experience with a company that I've consulted with for years. Mostly I work in this particular case with their leadership team. And so I know them all pretty well. They had a situation where one of the people on the leadership team, his mom had a very bad diagnosis, ovarian cancer. And he said, hey, look, I got to step back for an unknown number of months to go and support her. And everybody said, yeah, of course, absolutely. They divvied up all of his work. And one of the women on the leadership team is just one of those people that you can always count on. She's always stepping into the breach. She's got a great attitude, so many things that we identify with being a resilient worker and a resilient human. And the CEO called me about a month later and said, that woman, she's not only not doing the things she said she would do to pick up the slack for this person, she's not even meeting her own usual obligations. Like, she's falling to pieces in front of me. If I'd hired her in the last year, I would just fire her. But I didn't just hire her in the last year. I know that there's something I don't understand. One of the things I tell my clients often is, when you're frustrated, try to tie that frustration to curiosity. Feel your frustration, but try to remember to also be curious. What's going on here that I don't understand? So he said to me, I've tried asking, I'm getting nowhere. My frustration's really getting the upper hand. Can you come in and we'll have a conversation? So I did that. And here's what we figured out. Her mom died of the thing that that guy's mom was suffering from. She didn't even put it together. She didn't think like, I'm sad, grief-stricken, resentful, none of those things. She was doing the best she could and couldn't figure out why. She felt like she was moving through mud. So resilience isn't a guarantee.
She was having a bit of a post-traumatic reaction.
She really was. And understandably, because she was so busy being competent, she didn't notice it. She wasn't used to looking for it. It had never happened to her before. Her mom had died years previously. And she thought she was at a different point in grief. Now, we all know grief isn't linear, but she thought she knew where she was, and that turned out not to be where she was. I just want leaders to really know that resilience in general follows a trend, and we can grow it on purpose, but we need to be curious when we see someone's resilience drop. And again, not feel betrayed or like, oh, I didn't hire the right person, or I don't know this person.
It's like a muscle that you have to keep working on, strengthening, or it atrophies, and you lose the capacity to use it to its highest potential.
I love that analogy. And I would say, and keep in mind that when you're on a good exercise program, you can still get injured.
I wish I love that tie frustration to curiosity. If I could have used that this week dealing with an organization that is restructuring and the CEO can't figure out why people were, or he's frustrated, but they're not, they can all see this. Why can't they see it like me? But well, be curious about it. I love it. Very cool. Very cool.
Michael, you could call him later and tell him you had a great insight today.
Yes. Yeah, I will.
Fantastic. Do that. You know, I remind people that we should actually try curiosity to surprise as well as frustration. You know, we talked about raising kids. If you ever had a kiddo who was, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, and they were usually pretty energetic, and then all of a sudden one day they just wanted to sit and be quiet or be hugged or be on your lap, as wonderful as that feels, you probably checked them for a fever, right? Like, why are you, what's really going on here? In that same way, when people surprise us, whether it's bad surprise, which we usually feel is frustration, or good surprise, like you have a team member whom you have been asking forever to be more communicative along the steps in a project, and then suddenly they are emailing you twice daily updates, get curious. Are they just doing exactly what you asked and this is a new path? Fantastic. Don't get accusatory, don't diagnose. Just get curious. Hey, I'm curious. Is this new communication style working for you? Is this coming out of some frustration that you had because you think maybe I'm being a little bit too demanding about frequent communication? Get curious.
So I like the idea that you can talk about resilience strategies in recruiting and retaining. So what would your guidance be to leaders in terms of thinking about resilience during the recruiting process, given the fact that everybody is recruiting and re-recruiting right now? I think that would be intriguing.
So recruiting, I think one of the places that we miss an opportunity is we tend to ask about a struggle you faced professionally or a difficulty. And the only downsides to asking those questions, I think, is one, most people know to have a canned answer for that. And because it's on every list of interview questions you should be ready to ask. And also, people tend to tell big stories. And it isn't often the one big change or the one big difficulty that undermines people's ability to be successful at work. It's it's death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Yes.
Or a change that should be qualitatively good, but was a struggle. So, I would suggest in recruiting to ask questions like, what's a change that surprised you in its difficulty and how did you navigate it? When there are too many changes at once, because that happens sometimes, what strategies do you bring to bear to just strengthen yourself and not feel so winded?
And we like to also to ask about, after you've been through those kinds of things, what did you learn and what did you apply, in another situation? That's sort of like that idea of building the resilience muscle a little bit.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. Right. Great advice. Great insights. If folks want to get in touch with you, Dr. G, what's the best way to connect?
I would love it if you would contact me through my website. It's really easy. It's askdrg.com.
Oh, I love it.
And if you're interested in the book itself, I actually put together a free tool that people can try out to see what this book is like, because it's really meant to be tailored for each of your employees, for them to find the strategies that work for them. So I have a URL that is stressedtoresilient.com. And there you'll be able to tell me what you've been going through, and you answer some multiple choice questions, and then I'll tell you which of the 8 resilience skills that I teach I think would be most useful, and give you a couple of strategies to build it.
That's great.
Great. I think I could sit and talk and listen with you all day, but we need to wrap up at some point. But we again want to thank you for being a guest here on the Cafe. It's been a great discussion, a great introduction. It's been great meeting you. One thing that we have been asking all of our guests is, everybody's been talking about what the pandemic and other challenges has done to you. If you think through the challenges that you have faced and other things more recently, what do you think the pandemic and other social challenges has done for you?
Oh, I love that question. In the weeds, my answer is parent-teacher conferences from my couch. I never, ever want to have to try and navigate my kids' school building for parent-teacher conferences, at like 8 p.m. at night after a full workday, when I can do it with my child from my couch. So that's an in the weeds answer. But in a much bigger sense, my family is far flung, and I have stopped thinking of us connecting and getting together around even small and medium-sized milestones and events as only if it would be worth the plane ticket and the hotel or housing them, or me being housed by them. So I see people who don't live in the city I live in that I love on a much more regular basis. And it really strengthens me. It really does.
Yeah, we have our weekly Zoom call at wine:30 on Sunday with the whole family. So I love that. That's been very beneficial. So,
And I have to say, lastly, that the social justice change that has been happening, not fast enough and far too late, but has been happening in the US, has been a huge gift to me to help me understand privilege and struggle in a completely different way. And I hope made me a much better listener.
Well, thank you, Debbie. We appreciate it. And we'll, as a thank you, we'll send you a copy of our book, The Strategy.
Fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then we'll be releasing a podcast on a regular basis, and everybody can see them on posted on LinkedIn and Spotify and on our wherever you enjoy your favorite podcasts. We also want to thank our extraordinary producer and director Chad Barr of the Chad Barr Group for providing amazing support for the cafe and keeping us taking over the technology stuff that is a stressor for all of us. So from all of us at the Leadership Cafe, thanks for joining in. I'm Michael Couch.
And I'm Richard Citron, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the next Leadership Cafe. Dr. G, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.